Hey everyone, Trevor Noah here. Let's talk about something that sounds boring but can actually be pretty wild: tariffs. You might think tariffs are just some dry economic policy, but they can actually shake up the global economy in ways you wouldn't believe. You know, those things countries slap on each other's goods to make them more expensive. Yeah, those little taxes can cause big waves. Well, back in 2018, the Trump administration decided to play a little game of tariff tag, and let me tell you, things got interesting. It was like watching a high-stakes poker game, but with entire economies on the line. Now, the whole point of a tariff is to protect your own country's industries. It's like putting up a fence to keep the competition out. The idea is that if you make foreign goods more expensive, people will buy local. Sounds simple, right? But in reality, it's a bit more complicated. But as we'll see, it's not always that simple. Tariffs can lead to trade wars, and trade wars can lead to all sorts of unexpected consequences. Trump's main targets were China, and surprisingly, our friendly neighbors to the north, Canada. It was like he was picking a fight with the biggest kid on the block and the kid next door. The Trump administration argued that China was playing dirty with trade, stealing intellectual property, and unfairly subsidizing its industries. They said China was like that kid who cheats at every game. As for Canada, well, let's just say Trump had a way of keeping things interesting with our allies. It was like he couldn't resist stirring the pot. He claimed they were taking advantage of the US on trade, particularly when it came to things like dairy and lumber. Imagine accusing your best friend of cheating at Monopoly. So he went ahead and imposed tariffs on billions of dollars worth of goods from both countries. It was like dropping a bombshell in the middle of a dinner party. The goal? To bring back jobs to America and reduce the trade deficit. It was a bold move, aiming to revive industries that had been struggling for years. But as we'll see, things didn't exactly go according to plan. The stock market took a hit, and economists started to worry about the long-term effects. Buckle up, folks, because this is where the trade war gets real. We're about to dive into the twists and turns of a global economic showdown. First up on the tariff hit list, Canada, the land of maple syrup, hockey, and apparently a new battleground for trade wars. Trump mainly went after Canadian steel and aluminum, two of the country's major exports that are crucial to its economy, slapping tariffs of 25% and 10% respectively. These tariffs were a significant blow to Canadian industries. Why? He claimed these imports were a threat to US national security. This reasoning left many scratching their heads. Yeah, you heard that right, national security. The idea was that relying on foreign steel could weaken the US in times of conflict. Apparently, cheap Canadian steel was going to turn us all into sitting ducks. This move strained the long-standing friendly relations between the two neighbors. Next up, the big kahuna, China. The trade tensions with China were on a whole different scale. The US imposed tariffs on a whopping $360 billion worth of Chinese goods, a staggering amount that affected a wide range of products, covering everything from electronics and machinery to furniture and clothing. These tariffs aimed to curb China's growing economic influence. China, not one to back down from a fight, retaliated with its own tariffs on American goods like soybeans, a key export for American farmers, pork, and automobiles. This tit-for-tat strategy escalated tensions further. This back and forth sparked a full-blown trade war, with both sides trying to outmaneuver the other. The stakes were high and the impacts were felt globally. With both sides trying to outmaneuver the other, negotiations were tense, and finding common ground seemed increasingly difficult. But, as with any war, there were casualties. Businesses on both sides faced uncertainty and financial strain, and in this case, it wasn't just the economies of the US and China that took a hit, but also those of innocent bystanders like Canada. The ripple effects were widespread, but also those of innocent bystanders like Canada. The tariffs disrupted supply chains and affected jobs, highlighting the interconnected nature of the global economy. So, how did Canada handle being caught in the crossfire of this trade war? Well, not so great. The tariffs on steel and aluminum hit Canadian businesses hard, leading to job losses and factory closures. And because Canada is such a trade-dependent nation, any disruption to the flow of goods across the border was bound to hurt. The tariffs also drove up prices for Canadian consumers. Think about it. If it costs more for businesses to import raw materials like steel and aluminum, those increased costs get passed down to the consumer in the form of higher prices. So Canadians ended up paying more for everything from cars and appliances to beer cans. But the damage wasn't just economic. The tariffs also put a strain on the long-standing friendship between Canada and the US. Canadians were understandably upset that their country, a close ally and trading partner, was being treated like a threat to national security.
I feel nauseous, believe me.
Now, Canada wasn't just going to sit there and take it. They retaliated with their own tariffs on a range of US products, targeting everything from ketchup and orange juice to bourbon and playing cards. The message was clear. You want to play hardball? Two can play that game. The Canadian government also made a point of strengthening trade ties with other countries, like the European Union and China. This diversification strategy was a way for Canada to reduce its reliance on the US market and show that it had other options. The trade war with the US was a wake-up call for Canada. It forced them to rethink their economic dependence on their southern neighbor and explore new opportunities for trade and investment around the world. Section 5. Chinese impacts, a trade titan pushes back. Now let's talk about China. As the world's second largest economy, they weren't just going to roll over and show their belly. China retaliated with tariffs of their own, targeting key American exports like soybeans, pork, and automobiles. These retaliatory tariffs hit American farmers and manufacturers hard. China was a huge market for American agricultural products, and the tariffs caused exports to plummet, leading to financial hardship for many farmers. The trade war also disrupted supply chains for American businesses that relied on Chinese manufacturing. The tariffs increased the cost of imported goods, forcing companies to either absorb those costs or pass them on to consumers in the form of higher prices. Section 6. American impacts consumers and businesses caught in the crossfire. So, while the tariffs were intended to punish China and Canada, they ended up hurting American businesses and consumers as well. Remember those higher prices for Canadian steel and aluminum? Well, they meant American manufacturers had to pay more for those materials, which drove up the cost of their products. And those Chinese tariffs? They led to higher prices for everything from electronics and clothing to furniture and toys. So, American consumers ended up footing the bill for this trade war in the form of higher prices for everyday goods. The tariffs also created uncertainty for businesses, making it difficult for them to plan for the future. The constant threat of new tariffs or changes to existing ones made it risky to invest and expand, which ultimately hurt economic growth. Section 7. Long-term consequences, a shifting global trade landscape. The trade war had long-term consequences that went beyond the immediate economic impact. It strained relationships between the US and its trading partners, eroded trust, and created a climate of uncertainty in the global economy. The tariffs also accelerated the trend of deglobalization, as countries became more wary of relying too heavily on a single trading partner. This led to a shift towards regional trade agreements and a more fragmented global trading system. The trade war also highlighted the importance of diversifying supply chains. The disruption caused by the tariffs forced businesses to rethink their reliance on China as the world's factory and explore alternative sourcing options. Section 8. The Biden era, a change in tune, or more of the same. When Joe Biden took office in 2021, there was hope that he would reverse course on Trump's trade policies and ease tensions with China and Canada. While Biden did acknowledge the harm caused by the tariffs, he also recognized the strategic challenge posed by China's economic practices. Instead of immediately lifting the tariffs, the Biden administration opted for a more cautious approach, engaging in negotiations with China and reviewing the existing trade policies. While some tariffs were lifted, many remained in place, leaving businesses and consumers in limbo. The Biden administration also shifted its focus from unilateral action to multilateral cooperation, seeking to build alliances with other countries to address shared economic concerns and put pressure on China to change its behavior. Section 9. Conclusion. The uncertain future of global trade. The trade war launched by the Trump administration had a profound impact on the global economy, disrupting trade flows, straining relationships, and creating uncertainty for businesses and consumers alike. The imposition of tariffs on a wide range of goods led to increased costs for manufacturers and consumers, and retaliatory measures from other countries further complicated the situation. While the Biden administration has taken a more measured approach, the legacy of the trade war continues to shape the global trade landscape. Efforts to rebuild and strengthen international relationships are ongoing, but the scars of the past few years are still evident. The administration's focus on multilateralism and re-engagement with global institutions marks a significant shift, yet challenges remain. The tariffs highlighted the interconnectedness of the global economy and the importance of international cooperation. They served as a stark reminder that no country operates in isolation, and that the actions of one nation can have far-reaching consequences for the entire world. They also underscored the need for a rules-based trading system that is fair, transparent, and predictable. Such a system is essential for fostering trust and stability in international trade, ensuring that all parties play by the same rules and that disputes can be resolved in a fair and orderly manner. As we move forward, the big question is, what does the future hold for global trade? The landscape is constantly evolving, influenced by technological advancements, shifting political dynamics, and changing consumer preferences. Will we see a return to a more open and cooperative system, or will protectionism and economic nationalism continue to rise? Only time will tell. The choices made by policymakers in the coming years will be crucial in determining the direction of global trade. But one thing is for sure, the trade war has left an indelible mark on the global economy, and its effects will be felt for years to come. Businesses, governments, and consumers alike will need to adapt to this new reality, finding ways to navigate the complexities and uncertainties of the global trade environment.